A special resource for Autism Acceptance Month. This month is Autism Acceptance Month. And we'll put the link to that in the chat. So the written message that accompanies the video is 1 in 36 children is diagnosed autistic, and every day these children are expected to try to bend and mask to fit into a neurotypical world. But instead of expecting them to change to fit into the world around them, perhaps we can create a society where neurodivergence is embraced and all people are accepted as they are. One way to promote autism acceptance is to read Kidlit, featuring autistic representation. Change starts with us, and we have the change to nurture the future generations of readers and leaders through the stories and voices we share. We have the chance to nurture the future generations. Future generations. And then Yellow Heart. And while we want to be sure to share these stories year round and not only as a symbolic gesture of acceptance once a year, April is a time to especially amplify and center the voices and experiences of the autistic community. So read books to help spread autism acceptance. And I've curated this picture book list.
Thank you, Coriander. It's a really sweet video with, lots of explanation of each book. And I'll pass this to Joe, I believe, who's going to tell us what we're going to see next, and Sheila.
Hey everyone. So Sheila and I recently had a discussion about the importance of music education in general, but especially for kids who learn differently, and for, in our cases, especially for learners who are non-speaking. So we have a quick kind of excerpt of our discussion here to get things started.
I'm going to advance this to minute 450. Sorry that I wasn't able to do that ahead of the meeting.
Because I realized that.
Give me a second. There we are. Exactly at 4:49. That's fine.
Given their communication issues and their sensory and whatnot, just the fact that they can have an outlet and have a range of activities that they can be exposed to, and then eventually like find the thing or the things that they really like, to give them enjoyment, to give them confidence. And like our kids are really oftentimes, all too often, get the message that they're less than, just because they behave differently, they do things differently. They don't get enough encouragement. And so like I am really a big believer in the fact that like we need to like lift up these children however we can, and as do the the adults and the community in their life. Why not have a significant portion of that time be when they're receiving some sort of musical education therapy, when they're hearing how incredible they are and how how much potential they have. That should be the reality. And I know that it's all too seldom the case, but I think that we can all do better to encourage encouragement and to encourage positivity. And if that is if that becomes the norm, it won't even be a matter of like, oh well, the policy says this, or like the resolution. It'll be in place, because that'll be the expectation of these professionals, of these adults who are in the lives of these kids. So I'm hopeful that that with that, with Sheila, with the resolution, that regardless of what the final language is, that with passage it really becomes just like a cultural shift, and that anyone knows that if they're like if they're teaching, like our belong to the school community.
Yeah, they do.
And so I think that it's really important that with this resolution, which again, like thank you so much. I think it's like you're bringing up really important issues. Actual component. The more that they know that they really have so much potential, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
Who was the gentleman who was talking about Fela Kuti just now?
I think
That was
we're
Maya.
good from
So,
there.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we've
yeah,
just
yeah.
been talking.
Let's count in. Check this out. So we checking on these deaf people right here. I put together. And listen with deaf rhyme. You know what I'm saying? Together, we get paid in full.
Okay, and oh, that was James playing, and there were, I mean, really working to get a good clip. So thanks for your efforts to get that in here. So I'm
Yeah, and just a
thinking,
little more info. That's yeah, so that's James, as Cynthia mentioned. And that was a really cool rendition on their keyboard. You saw the LED lights to kind of like help with the visual aspect of motor planning. And that was James' rendition of Eric B. and Rakim. Eric B. Eric B. is president. Classic.
thank you. Back to you,
That
Coriander.
was dope. I recognized it. And he was in the pocket. Thank you, Jen. All right, so who is here today? Please, everyone who's here, introduce yourself in the chat with your name and name of the school, program, role, and or organization. You can also share the disability categories or identities with which you are most familiar from a personal or family experience. And if you're unable to chat, put it in the chat because you're on your phone right now. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to come off mic and say something. That's fine too. We have time for that.
You have Sheila with a raised hand, Coriander.
Oh, hey Sheila.
Oh, yeah,
Welcome.
I'm sorry I missed it. I just have problems with the link, but I just want to thank you guys for showing James and yep, sharing our ongoing advocacy for music and he learning online. Thank you.
It was very cool. I recognized the song before Joe said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right, I know this song. And he has a cool piano that lights up. That was great. She always shows up. Lorna Sanchez, Sheila, James's mommy. We just saw James playing the piano. Joe, who you guys heard, CAC member. Eben Cambridge, CEO of the Rep Fund. Hi, Eben. I recognize your name. Great.
You have Leona Lang from Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
You might have read that and I missed it.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
JD is a parent of twin sixth graders, one with ADHD and gen ed. And then, oops, it's going so quickly, which is good. At MLA, and one pediatric with a brain disorder and counseling, and Rachel Edna Brewer. Rachel Latta, school board D1 rep. What's up, Rachel? Thanks for coming. She's also a parent at Prescott and West Oakland Middle School. One kid with a speech and language IEP. Cy, moderate self-contained program teacher at Bret Hart. She was my daughter's teacher when my daughter was at Bret Hart. Sonia Thatcher, Internet Inclusion Specialist, ECSE. And I am Coriander. My daughter is a sophomore at Castlemont, and she's the best teacher, Miss Charity Nichols. Kiana, parent, second grade, SDC student at Glenview. Welcome, Kiana. Anna, mama of two autistic kids at Oakland High, and Joaquin Miller, member of CAC. Hello. Hi, Anna.
Let me know when you want to move it.
I'm ready.
Okay.
And see if we have a quorum. All right, Yona Zimmerman Block. Latifa Ali. Lena Anthony. Jennifer Blake.
Here.
Carol Delton.
Here.
Ashley DeMello. Cynthia Gutierrez.
Here.
Hi, Cynthia. Sheila Haynes.
Here.
Denise Hustetler. Patty Jurgens.
I'm here.
Hey, Patty. Corvetta Kurtman. Alan Purcell. Joe Manikin.
Here.
Corey Undermelius. I'm here. Anna Rialini.
Hi, good evening.
Tiffany Stewart. Sayuri Valenza.
Here.
Ingo Wegar. JD Woloshin.
I am here.
And Kristen Zimmerman.
You have 10 members, one shy of quorum. The
Coriander,
moment.
I'm here. It's
Oh,
Ashley
so-
DeMello.
Ashley, we are
Hey,
at quorum.
Ashley. Okay, woo. All right, let's get some for hi Corvetta's here. For an in-depth report about this initiative, please see the meeting presentation from February 10th of 2025. The Young Adult Program is excited to share our education improvement plan presentation to the Measure N and H Commission on April 23rd from 11:05 to 11:35. This presentation will include a description of our education plan, improvement plan, work-based learning plan, and program of study. The commission will be reviewing our application for full implementation funding for the 25-26 school year and will vote on approving all EIPs at the following commission meeting. We are excited to share that the commission discussed introducing an amendment to provide a full implementation funding for the 24-25 school year, as well as planning grant funding for 23-24 school year upon successful approval of our EIP for 25-26. While not final, this is a very encouraging and exciting development. I agree. That is such good news.
I'm sure that Jen can explain this too, but basically that funding becomes carryover because that is in the past. So
Right.
yeah,
That's
so
from the past. And for those who are new, the young adult program was not receiving funding. And so this is a way to make up for omitting our disabled young adult program students from college and career readiness money. Measure N, which is now Measure H. All right.
This is pineapple. You're not going to eat it, right?
Someone's mic is on. You might want to mute it if you don't want us to hear everything you're talking about. So sufficient staffing for disabled students with IEPs, special education teachers, paraprofessionals, instructional support specialists. This was the main topic of our February 10th meeting. You know where you can find that in the LCAP folder. Okay.
Hey, I think you guys, good work. I just wanted to say, as a former substitute teacher, I often would be be placed into neurodivergent classrooms, and I really didn't, have any, previous training on dealing with that demographic. So I guess my question is, during your listening circle, were you able to bring in a lot of the contract workers that I noticed are working within the school district? Because it seems like the district relies heavily on contract workers, and um, it just in general, I feel like it would be really beneficial for the students, um, for the district to really prioritize implementing more like full-time staff instead of the contract workers. And I'll take the question off.
Okay. There were no contracted paraeducators. I was at this listening session. It was all direct hires, who have been doing it for years and who are members of the community also. And we did discuss the impacts of having contractual workers being used more and more in our school district. And yeah. And if you want to talk more about it, we can later. So okay, participant, the paraeducator teacher team. These are some of the highlights. Okay, the importance and impact of teams building trust. The paraeducators who had very strong relationships with the teachers and the whole team. They enjoyed working more and were more likely to stay for longer when there was mutual respect all around. Teacher-student ratios, the vacancies are the biggest challenge. It's tough to provide the needed support. When they spoke about when we merged closed SDC programs, everything that we thought was going to be problematic was, and there's not enough support. And then when you're having new students enter into a school that wasn't previously theirs for the couple years before, it it just makes it very hard for our teams to do the work that they need to do. Next slide, please. So, and there is an investment on growing our own, and that is something the district is working hard on. Carlos Santana has been doing great work. Benefits of a diverse group of paraeducators that are invested in Oakland. Although helpful, contracted help does not have the same investment as school community, what we're talking about. We need more training, higher pay, improving staff, student ratio, and certain programs to provide better longevity and retention. There is training that's happening for paraeducators. It happens once a month, and they get to spend time with a OT, occupational therapist, physical therapist, a nurse, speech and language pathologist. They get to work with a behavior specialist. So the direct hires from OUSD are getting these week-long trainings. And they, even if you've been a paraeducator already for 5 years, then you can still go and request to get the training. And the paraeducators that were in this meeting were like, oh yeah, I would love to do that. To refresh, to redefine what is our job, and to just learn something new. I think that's something that's really great that's happening in this area. Unfortunately, the contracted workers they don't get this because they're coming from a different company. And so to the person who just asked that question, that's to your point, right? We should have more people who are direct hires. Investment. Okay, next slide, please.
This
And-
will be Joe, but if not, we can just read the outcome. The
Okay, Joe,
text
do you want to come off mic?
and the text
Yeah,
is here
sure.
for reference. You don't have to read it, Joe. It's just if people want to know what this is, the text has been here every month.
Got it. Okay, so let me do a quick summary. So we're talking about school board legislative priorities related to special education. So the district retains lobbyists to raise their concerns to at the state government level, and it is always in our interest as an advisory committee to make sure that what we prioritize is clearly stated and communicated as part of the legislative platform of the school board. So that's all that to say that we had the priorities that are discussed here in detail. And they were recently, again, I'm not gonna read them. Definitely feel free to ask away if anyone has any questions, but they were voted in and adopted by the school board as part of their platform on March 12th. And definitely, as always, a big thank you to our own Carol Delton, who helps to make it all happen. And not having been a part of the process until this year, I can tell you that while it's not super, super laborious, there is lots of back and forth. There's lots of pinging. There's lots of setting calendars. There's lots of kind of like checking in with Dr. Dexter Moore, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of kind of staying on it, which Carol is incredibly good at doing, not just for that, but any number of other things that she does to support this work. So that's all I got.
Okay, so the meeting's coming up. This one, oh wait, Wednesday, 4/16. A report at the PSAC meeting. It's going by so quick. It feels like, okay. Sheila saying Vice President Batchelor finally sent an email reply back about her proposal at the February meeting to cut music. She still didn't confirm exactly, but at least there's dialogue.
Mhm.
And Carol's glad to hear that. There's a lot of restrictions on Prop 28. Sorry if I'm talking too fast, translators. My bad. Mm,
And we have an additional roughly 5 minutes for the spec segment. We might be able to cover it.
okay, hold on. Okay, so there was a question, this is a good one by Leona Lang. Is there information on the training that contracted paras to receive?
Mm,
And Rain Johnson, do you want to come off mic, Rain, or did you want me to read what you said?
Sure. I can come off
Thank-
mic. I was just talking about, it varies agency by agency. We have several different agencies we support or work with support staff. Some of them have kind of more basic trainings around behaviors and behavioral supports, as well as, for example, they might get information on custodial care and what that looks like. And then some of our agencies provide more intensive, more in-depth training, including CPI training and BCBA supported training as well.
You mind
we've
saying
been
what
seeing-
do you mind saying what BCBA
Sure. Board certified behavior analysts. And so they are required both to supervise staff that are providing registered behavioral support, as well as just consulting on student needs and classroom needs related to behavioral needs.
Any other questions about any of the initiatives that we just went over? But I might be missing.
and it might be hard to get deeply into the topics. These are more updates, but yeah.
Hold on here. Evan, do you have a question? Your hand is up.
Yeah, just once again as a sub, because speaking from a sub experience, I remember hearing about the suspensions, and I agree. The school should really focus on lowering the suspensions. I know as a sub, the kind of respect level in certain schools was pretty low, um, in regards to, when you enter in a classroom, how the students perceive you, and then the kind of backup that you get from the administration. My recommendation, for what it's worth, I think the school should really, especially the administrators, should embrace the referral system a little bit more. Um, Not seeing it as a bad thing, but as a way to really engage parents. I know it's difficult for administrators because it involves calling parents and getting them to come to the school. But even as a sub, I remember I was at Fremont Middle School, and I was going to be there for a week. Uh, I called, I believe, like four different parents on my own, and I got a dramatic improvement in the classroom, like immediately. But I also remember leaving referrals for, the administration to follow up on, and rarely um, did the administration at the school follow up on the referrals that were left. So that's just my 2 cents. If I would like to hear your comments on it.
Yeah, that's I mean, we see that all over, and I'm on a SSC team at Castlemont, and when we're looking at the SPSA, one of the things that I voiced as being a member of that is that when they're looking at expulsions and reducing numbers, especially with Black children and Black disabled children, that they are looking at the behavior intervention, all the steps are taken before it gets to that point. So one of those would be like looking at the referrals. So that's definitely, yes, there needs to be, more looking at the data, checking, seeing what's in place, and making sure that these steps are taken so that it's not just like your behavior is unacceptable, we're suspending you. There's so many steps when it comes to our students with IEPs and behavior plans that need to be taken first.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess yeah. I just like I know the referral system is really. I know people like administrators don't like it because for whatever reason it makes their school numbers look worse. But I think they really should embrace that because I know a lot of behavior can be nicked in the bud. Personally, when I talk to the parents a lot of them didn't know that their
Mm.
children were behaving the way they were until I called them and but the school knew these kids um had issues but the parents didn't. So I found that disconnect to be kind of startling because the I literally had a parent after one conversation come up to the school and literally stand in the classroom watching her daughter for the whole classroom.
Mhm.
The impact wasn't just on her, but it was on the entire class.
Yeah.
We
Thank you.
need to do a time check.
Okay. Thank you. So, Sai,
We're 3 minutes behind.
we're 3 minutes behind.
I just wanted to say really quickly, as someone on the committee to reduce suspensions of Black students with IEPs, that Evan, to your point, like I don't think it's the referral that made the difference, right? It was you making the phone call. So it was you making that connection, reaching out to the family. And so the improvements that you saw had nothing to do with like the referral. So while I totally agree with the follow-up part and admin, whatever, but like part of our committee, the whole point is to look at how can we build those relationships at school sites and not just do referrals, but actually make the connection with the families and partner with the families and get to know the kids and see what they need. So I just wanted
Thank
to
you. Thank
put
you.
that out there.
And yeah, Evan, you sound passionate about this. You should join our committee. I gotta move it along. Thank you. Thank you. And we haven't.
You are muted, Quinn.
Sorry. There's an appreciation for you being a substitute. First of all, thank you for doing that work and being here and voicing your perspective. Thank you. We're going to move on for the sake of time. This is a very hot topic that we have been talking about for years.
So we do spend a lot of time trying to support our teachers, especially our new teachers, with training and understanding scheduling and student needs for our students with disabilities. Sorry, I have a cat. So I think that we've also we have a lot of resources dedicated to this. We have IEP teams that are working on supporting getting IEPs done. One, if, for example, a teacher is on leave, or two, making sure those IEPs are compliant. Our program specialists are always helping with scheduling and coaching of teachers on, how do you follow a calendar for your IEPs?
I can add a couple more details about the data we've collected over the course of the last 2 school years. The number one reason special education teachers give for not holding an IEP on time is a lack of interpretation support. We are working to address that with our Office of Equity and feel pretty confident we have a new plan that is going to work far better for educators, that requires less work on their part if there is not an in-house interpreter available. The number 2 reason teachers give is that the child is not made available. This is a common response in secondary grades where chronic absence may be an issue or families may be difficult to get a hold of. And even though we have written procedures for that, we still have a lot of unevenness in following up with continuing to hold IEPs where we may have a difficult time getting a hold of the family or locating the student.
and then, have kids this year. I have students with a lot of needs. It's like teaching full-time, right, is what I'm supposed to be doing, but then the amount of paperwork, like that's a whole other job. And I don't think people realize. So and I've, all those reasons, definitely. Like I've had that issue, interpretation, not being able to meet with families, all the things, but really it's like it's two full-time jobs. At least that's my perspective as a self-contained teacher. And so I feel like we also need to ask the teachers, which I know, Jen, you're doing. Like we just got a survey and, our TSAs and coaches are always supporting us. So, but yeah, like it's just a time thing
Yeah, I
as
hear
well.
that for sure, Sai. I think what's interesting though is that our data, at least from this year, show that our resource specialists are actually more likely to have late IEPs than our self-contained program teachers. And that's particularly true at the elementary level, where our self-contained teachers have the smallest amount of non-teaching dedicated preparatory and case management time. So as a former SCP teacher and resource specialist, I hear that I had way less time and flexibility as a self-contained program teacher. And yet our data don't really seem to show that that is directly aligned with who is having the most challenges getting IEPs done, at least right now.
Thank you, everyone. I think that how much more time do we have for questions? It's 7:02.
You have 2 minutes, but I gave them their full time and we started late.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Corvetta is saying she totally agrees with you, Sai. Yeah, in the chat. We have time for one more question.
Sorry, can I just add, I'm just wondering how many of, like with the shift to inclusion, I'm wondering if that's impacting like our elementary teachers' ability actually to like have that time. I don't know. I love the data that you collect though, and I totally appreciate that. And I'm not disagreeing or trying to refute the data, but I wonder then if it's the elementary, if because of the inclusion, if their time is more taken up by serving students. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, thanks, Sai. It's definitely something we can further disaggregate. We're grateful that we at least have been collecting a lot of information these last 2 years, so that we can try to remove as many barriers as the data and our conversations with teachers themselves show we can.
Sonia Thatcher put a great comment in the chat. Do you want to come off mic, Sonia, or do you want us to read it?
Go for it.
Okay. Each individual late IEP, each individual late initial that doesn't happen is its own story, and the factors are complex. What matters to me is looking to see if there are narrative threads that can be woven together. I appreciate identifying the big rock barriers, quotes. Interpretation is definitely one. The learning curve for new teachers, absolutely another. Caseload challenges at the RS level that make paperwork less compliant also are worth examining, as we all share the goal of increasing outcomes for kids. Yes, 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 yes. And Sai is saying, super appreciate the data collection. Thank you, thank you. We appreciate all the work. And we are ready to take a break. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and I'm gonna switch. JD is gonna be your talking head, and I will be in the chat. Have a good break, everyone.
We have some guiding questions. These are contracts that support the disability-related needs of students. And our questions that we were hoping to get answered. So what service does each contract provide to the students, and what are some important details about the providers? How and why were they selected to provide the service? 3, what is the scope of the service? So number of students, persons served, time, frequency, duration, etc. 4, how much does the contract cost? What contributes to that total cost? And 5, will a similar contract be in place with this provider in 2025 to 26? Please share the projected cost and any changes in the nature and scope of the service to be provided. And we're having this discussion, of course, because of the big debate in the district about over budget and where we should be spending our dollars, and specifically how much is spent on contracts. So we want to know how this discussion is impacting our students.
And then third, there are some specialized services where we do not have an in-house position at all. And I gave some examples here of a Braille transcriptionist or a speech language pathology assistant. Those don't exist as job classifications in Oakland Unified. Next slide. So why can't we just not do the work until a suitable person comes along who wants to work directly for us here in Oakland? For some initiatives within the district that are supplemental or optional, that is actually possible. In special education, because IEPs are mandated documents and we must implement what is in the IEPs, we do not have the option to stop the work until we find a suitable direct hired candidate. For some job classes, we have tried for years to exhaust all of the different options available to us to recruit and attract candidates, and we still do not get enough candidates. The example here on the slide is speech language pathologists, SLPs. If we did not contract for SLPs, we would be able to operate only at a capacity of providing just under half of our students who need speech with their speech services. What that would mean is that at least 1,800 students who have speech in their IEP would not get speech. We would owe compensatory education or makeup services for those services, and that would also come at a cost. In special education, if you do not provide a service that is required in a student's IEP, you are required to provide compensatory education. In this speech example, if we assume that students are served for 30 minutes a week, and there is variance on that, of course, given that IEPs are individualized, and we further assume 1,800 students would not get served, that would be about $5 million in compensatory speech services. Of course, most importantly, beyond the money or the lift of providing those compensatory services, these are related services that are supposed to happen inside a student's school day, embedded within their educational experience for the student to receive benefit. And so when services are not provided inside of the school day and are provided by private providers outside of the school day, that is less effective as a strategy for that student's overall educational experience. Next slide. So we'll pause there just on the why do we contract in case there are any quick questions. And then there are many slides to come about the specific details of the contracts.
Is there anybody with any questions on those slides? And the whys? All right, Sai, I see your hand.
This might be a super silly question, but I guess I always wonder, like, we have these open positions and these contractors have all the people. So the people are there, they're just not working for OUSD. So is it like, do you think like a pay thing or I don't know, but that's what's confusing for me. It's like, well, the people are there, they just don't want to work for OUSD.
Yeah, that's not a silly question at all, Sai. And I think just kind of like the what makes IEPs late conversation previously, there are many reasons that contribute to why a person may want to stay with an agency as opposed to directly hiring with a district. And we have some folks who have been with an agency for years who have worked in OUSD consistently, 7, 8, 9 years. The reasons do vary. A lot of times agencies are able to offer a more competitive wage because they offer lower quality benefits. And that is an individual decision that employee needs to make. Our benefits are attractive to many people, but not all people are interested. Maybe you have a partner or spouse that already gives you benefits, and so that's less attractive to you, and you'd rather receive that higher hourly rate. Also, some folks cite the flexibility that comes from working with an agency. If you have an assignment in a particular district and then you want to try out something new, you can go back to your agency and say, find other options that match whatever is next for me. And there's a lower lift on you as the employee. So those are some things that have been cited to us, but we do also have folks who start as agency employees every year and then say, I love it here, I want to work in Oakland directly. So it does work the other way on the stream as well. And we'll see that the amount of contracting we do also varies a lot by discipline. And so, for example, we don't contract other than for leaves for occupational therapists because we can recruit an adequate number of those ourselves. Whereas with speech language pathologists, we cannot. That's a good question. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so first couple of slides are just what disciplines do we contract for? Then we will be looking at what is true right now of this year. Then we'll look at what we expect for next year. Speech language pathologists, by percentage of total workforce, this is our most contracted discipline. These folks provide speech service, both direct and consultative. They complete speech assessments. They create accommodations, scaffolds, tools to support students with their language functioning in schools. Their caseload is 1 speech pathologist to every 50 students in our school-age population, 1 speech pathologist to every 40 students in early childhood. We contract for BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. These folks complete functional behavior assessments. They help with developing behavior intervention plans, and they provide professional development and coaching in the area of behavior and crisis response. They do not have an established caseload. It does vary somewhat based on the amount of service provided to individual students, but it is typically a caseload of 10 to 40 students they may be monitoring as individual cases on top of the support they provide to general classroom support. Behavior technicians, or BTs for short, are staff that implement behavior intervention plans. Those are usually for students who have dedicated staffing hard written into their IEP because of high frequency behaviors that may pose a risk to safety. Those assignments are almost always 1 student to 1 staff. Sometimes as a part of a FADE plan, those services may be 1 staff to 2 students, but that is atypical. Licensed vocational nurses, their job is to implement medical orders to ensure that procedures are done to make sure students are safe at school. And that is typically either a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 assignment. Next slide. All right, last few disciplines here. Braille transcriptionist. We have 1 of these staff, and they translate texts and printed materials into Braille for students who use Braille. Again, very few students need this level of service, but when you need it, you must have it for that student's access. Right now, we have a couple of students in our district that are receiving Braille services, and typically that would not exceed 5 students. An educational audiologist also is a low incidence provider. They maintain our equipment, make sure that it's calibrated well for use at our schools, train staff and families on its use. They also conduct auditory assessments and help interpret those findings. And those caseloads do also vary a bit. Speech language pathology assistants, as the name suggests, those are folks who help an SLP. They provide direct service primarily, but also collect data through their direct service and can help with prepping therapy materials. And then finally, our mental health clinicians. These are staff who provide therapy to students, both individual and group, and assist with classroom milieu support and mental health emergency response. And those caseloads vary from 11 to 15 staff, students per staff. Next slide. All right, this is a look at how many we are contracting by discipline this year right now. So right now we have 48.2 direct OUSD SLPs. The reason why it's not a whole number is because we have some part-time staff. We have 55.2 contracted SLPs, and then a further 11.4 SLPAs, assistants. For school psychologists, we have 43.1 direct hire school psychs. We have 22 contractors. Social workers, we have 20.8 direct hired staff and 3.5 contractors. OTs, 18 direct hired, 1 contractor for leave coverage. Teachers, we have 382.2 direct hire OUSD teachers. We have 3 virtual teachers who are contracted that work at Sojourner Truth. We will be reducing that and bringing on direct hire next year. And then 1 person who helps us with IEP vacancy coverage. Behavior technicians are not a job class we have in Oakland, and so they are all contracted. Licensed vocational nurses, we have 8 direct hired LVNs that typically provide general school support at our comprehensive high schools. We have 17 contracted LVNs that are providing medical order implementation in specific classrooms for specific students. Next slide, please. All right, another break for questions on where we're contracting now. I see Leona's question in the chat. How many ATAAC staff per school? We do not staff those per school. Our assistive technology and AAC specialists have a caseload of multiple schools. And the AT specialists are included in the number for occupational therapists because they're OTs by licensure. The AAC folks are included in our SLP counts because they're SLPs by licensure.
Is that correct?
So we've included all support staff in the behavior tech line item. That does include some folks who provide short-term vacancy and leave coverage. We don't contract paras for like long-term assignments, though. We contract them if like someone's on medical leave and otherwise a self-contained program would be left with no support staff, for example.
Understood. I've had a very long-standing concern about those positions, just looking broadly at the employment in OUSD in terms of where people fall salary-wise and hours-wise. So, you know, I'm very concerned about making those jobs better jobs to be attracting more people.
How does the number of BTs look for the last few years? Trending upward, remaining the same? Thanks for the question, Joe. In terms of the number of students who have dedicated one-on-one staffing written into their IEP, that has trended upward each of the last 3 years. Before COVID, we were at just over 100 students who required that level of service. I believe it was about 108. Don't quote me on that exact number, but it was under 110 for sure. And now we have 176.
The same question for ed techs in his question.
Right now, our educational technicians are providing only supplemental reading support aligned to the disability access resolution at specific focal elementary schools. And that number has remained consistent over the last 2 years that we have had the fiscal investment to do that supplementary tutoring. That is currently the only use case for ed techs.
All right, and Anna, I see your hand. Anna, you want to come off mic and ask your question?
About that. Yeah, given the that the board passed monetary caps on contractors, I'm wondering how that will affect this. Are there plans to bring some of the mandatory positions that don't exist in OUSD and must be contracted internal and make those hired positions, maybe raise the salary of paras and support staff so that we don't have to contract out? What is the plan to address the limits on contracts?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Anna, and that is very much still under development. So I don't have a final answer about that for you. I can say a couple things about future planning. It is absolutely our department's goal to reduce any non-essential contracting. So one example of that is that we have looked at behavioral data this year and identified 19 students who could move from a behavior technician, which is a contracted position, to an OUSD paraeducator as their dedicated staff provider. And we will be hiring 4 new paraeducators this summer to be able to meet those needs. And we'll continue that level of audit and analysis. I do think it's important for the folks here tonight to know, however, that there are finite limits on what we can manage. For example, bringing almost 180 behavior techs into OUSD would be a Herculean lift. One, we have to hire and recruit those people. As you all know from the working group and report outs in this space, we still have general classroom positions for paras we need to fill. We now have paras supporting early education in TK that we need to fill. That would require reorganizing talent to be able to bring on more recruiters to specialize that work stream. And it's not just the behavior techs. You then need the board certified behavior analysts that supervise the behavior techs. Then you need someone to supervise the board certified behavior analysts. And so there is, a multi-tiered impact associated with bringing a scope of work into an OUSD direct hiring scenario. And I think that our senior leadership, our board directors would really need to look carefully at the potential benefits and potential opportunity costs before making those types of decisions. Excuse my cough, I'm still getting over a flu. All right, so our current contracts and costs. These tables are broken down as follows. The left-hand column is the name of the vendor. The middle column is our projected cost for that vendor for 2024-25. The right-hand column are the types of disciplines we get from that vendor. One of the questions around why do we pick the folks we pick? There are a few answers to that. The first is availability of staff. Our primary consideration in picking a vendor is, do you have staff available for us when we need them? The second thing that we look at is overall value. We are a part of a group called the Bay Area Collaborative, which is a consortium of districts in this region that get together and work with preferred agency partners to set rate bands for their services. This helps avoid having each district have to do negotiations separately, and it assures us that we're getting a competitive value. The final thing we look at is the quality of experience, which includes factors like responsiveness, the partner's ability to come through for us if there is a concern about performance or conduct of an employee, their ability to provide adequate training for their staff, and the direct feedback that we get from the folks that are working alongside these contracted partners. So we'll start first with Emergis. This is a company that recently had a name change. So if you are looking back in Legistar, in past years, they were called Maxim Healthcare. We are projected to do about $4.7 million in business with them this year. They provide us with licensed vocational nurses, school psychs, behavior techs, and BCBAs. They are one of our largest providers for behavior techs. Our next vendor is Eval Group, also projected at about $4.7 million this fiscal year. They provide speech language pathologists, school psychs, behavior techs, and BCBAs. Our largest single vendor is Speech Pathology Group, SPG for short. They are projected to have $9 million in special education business. They also do business with general education departments, including community schools, expanded learning, early childhood. With special education legally mandated services, they provide us with SLPs. They are our largest provider of SLPs and SLPAs, BCBAs, school psychs, mental health clinicians, and ed techs. Ed Theory provides us with SLPs and school psychs, and we're projecting $1.1 million in business. And then you'll see that we have a cluster of vendors with smaller spends. AMN at $320,000. They provide SLPs and SLPAs for us right now. Aya Healthcare, which provides a couple of LVNs and a couple of school psychs. Communication Works, which provides SLPs only. Next slide. And some more vendors here. Pine Health is a newer partner. This is our first year working with them. They are providing some of our staff for leave and vacancy coverage, as well as a few LVNs for circumstances that are more complex, such as folks that need to ride transportation with students. Gary Stromberg and Associates is currently providing only speech-language pathology assistance. Row Health is a larger vendor. They provide most of our nursing care, both general purpose and special education. That includes licensed vocational nurses, 1 certified nursing assistant, and also some behavior techs. Rad Ed provides BCBAs only at just under $1 million this year. Stepping Stones Group is the last of our big contracts. They provide mental health clinicians, SLPs, behavior techs, school psychs, and the virtual teachers at Sterner Truth. Tilly is a behavior contract for behavior techs that we will not be working with again next year. And Upfront Interpreting provides ASL interpreters and ASL support staff at a cost of just under $500,000 projected this fiscal year. Next slide, please. And then we have a cluster of some other very small vendors that are each giving us only 1 to 1 and a partial staff member each. And that is for SLPs, our educational audiologist and our brailleist. The combined cost of all of those other vendors is $1.2 million. We are estimating that in special education, we will spend about $34.2 million on our non-public agency contracts this year. All right, we'll pause again for any questions about this year before we move into next year.
Ending in 4726.
Hi, this is Sheila. We went out on a walk, but excuse me if I'm out of breath. Did you cover anything about the grants and funding contracts for Prop 28?
No, ma'am. This is only special education contracts for things that are needed to implement IEPs.
Okay, thank you.
I still have your hand up. I don't know if you had another question or if you just forgot to. Okay. Is there anything else?
There we go. There we go.
We are projecting some pretty minor changes between this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So I will go through that and we will talk a little bit in detail about what we're anticipating for next year. So these slides provide a little bit more information. This is giving you the cost per hour to the district for each of these disciplines. This includes the anticipated cost of living adjustment or COLA for next fiscal year. So Emergis, again, former name Maxim, now called Emergis. They provide LVNs, school psychs, behavior techs, and we're anticipating to continue to have a teacher with them. That cost per hour is listed there. So you can see how much it costs the district per hour for each of these staff. Next slide, please. Speech Pathology Group, again, this is our largest vendor. We have our cost per staff listed on the left-hand column. One thing to note is that in addition to our non-public agency work to implement IEPs, we had a request for proposals that we put out to bid last year for our mental health program contract. I'll talk about that separately on a different slide, since that was awarded bids through competitive bidding, which has been this is a different process than a lot of our non-public agency expenditures. Next year, we're expecting with SPG that we will have 23 SLPs, 4 SLPAs, 1.4 AAC specialists, 6.6 school psychologists, 14 behavior technicians, 6 BCBAs, and 18 educational technicians for a total cost of $12,600,000. That is an increase over this year. Next slide, please. Eval group. We have SLPs, 2 we are expecting next year through them, 4 school psychologists, 20 behavior technicians, excuse me, and 4 BCBAs. We are anticipating a total cost with this vendor of $4 million next year. That is a decrease from this year. Next slide. Row Health, again, they are providing us with fewer disciplines than some of our other contracts, but they do provide most of our licensed vocational nurse care. We're anticipating 13 LVNs and 17 behavior technicians for a total spend of $2.5 million. Next slide, please. Pine Health, we are expecting to expand our business with. This was our first year with them this year. They have provided us with consistently quality service. They are one of the providers that has the highest substitute fill rate at over 94% of all per diem absences covered by a substitute. And they also have competitive rates to our current vendors. We will be increasing the number of behavior technicians with them to 29 anticipated positions next year, 5 LVNs and a BCBA for a total anticipated cost of $3.2 million next year. Next slide. Ed Theory, we're going to continue to expect to have the 8 SLPs we have with them and a part-time school psychologists, and that is a total anticipated cost of $1.25 million. Next slide. Stepping Stones Group, one of our other larger contracts. We have been decreasing our business with Stepping Stones Group slightly as we have moved a lot of our behavior technician business to other agencies. Right now, they're concentrated into fewer campuses. There will be more choices next year, moving to a reality in 2026-27, where all of our early childhood centers will be able to welcome children with IEPs. In preparation for that, we have 3 more resource specialists that are being added next year and 5 more paraeducators that are being added next year. That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, like in the example of a mental health clinician.
Yeah.
There are plenty of businesses out there that will give you clinic-based services. We are not interested in contracting for those. We need providers that will come to our schools and embed the service in the school day.
Cool. Thank you.
From about $72 to $74 an hour. So let's just call it 73 for some easy math. If we take that out over a school year, that's about $87,000 and change per year. Next year, the average salary benefits cost of an OUSD paraeducator is about $86,000 and change. And that varies a lot based on dependents and benefits costs, but that's the average. With the small number of remote teachers we have for Sojourner Truth, that is a break even on the average salary benefits costs of a 10-month teacher. So it does vary a bit by discipline, but as we have had folks, open collective bargaining and then negotiate compensation increases that they deserve. Those compensation increases, coupled with the double-digit increases in the cost of Kaiser benefits, have definitely leveled the playing field on most of these positions not being more expensive to contract.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
Yeah. So no, I know that you guys are discussing contracts and things like that, and I'm just wondering when we will hear back from Phil Ryden, because I believe that, therapeutic services, it shouldn't take for those services to be requested through the IEP. And wanted to also ask, was there any sort of survey back from parents about services that they were requesting?
Thanks, Sheila. So just again, these are services that are in students' IEPs. Some students do really benefit from music service, absolutely. But music therapy is not a California service with a service code that is even available to offer in an IEP. So we don't have any of those in IEPs. So we don't contract for IEP implementation for that type of an offering. We have done supplemental things through our disability access resolution dollars to bring more adaptive music and arts. For example, we have a mural project at 3 schools right now that is happening and providing some adaptive art experience. And as it pertains to survey, we don't survey parents about services they might want because all of that is discussed through IEP team conversations. We do, however.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was speaking of the survey that was sent out, like surveying parents on what kind of services they wanted and how many people mentioned it.
Well, that was for the access resolution, right, Jen?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
was going to mention that we do a survey that is focused not on IEP mandatory services, but on what types of experiences might you like your child to be a part of. And we did just close another round of that survey. So by our May convening, we should be able to bring back an analysis of the data on the responses that we received and a comparison to the last 2 survey rounds.
Okay, I guess I'm just waiting to hear back about when Phil Ryden will be giving us more information because, you know, like I said, it was proposed about $1 million in cuts, and got an email back from the vice president. She didn't rule that out, and she mentioned something about grant funding as a possibility from that. So that's why I was asking the questions, like when would Phil be able to give us more information on that?
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. I know that's really near and dear to your heart. I don't know anything about Prop 28 or the music and arts plans for next year since they're not part of students' IEPs, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can say earlier on in the meeting, we did report that Phil Radin will be responding to our questions that we had from the last meeting, and we're going to be linking his responses into these slides for the future, and also in the CAC public folder. So we have lots of more new questions. Go ahead, Joe, and then I see you, Carol, and Coriander.
I'm wondering if we wanted to voice to someone like our desire to have, you know, maybe within the context of related services that already exist, for example, OT or speech, if there are new modalities, new systems that are that have become popular, but aren't necessarily like a prereq to get, certification in any of those fields. There's been a lot of, lots of talk in recent years, and even, like a little further back, that things like, reflex integration work can be very helpful. But these are things that are kind of like in the realm of OT practice that OTs don't necessarily need to know, autistic populations. But just to, things that kind of like live in that space, but aren't like a prerequisite requirement to get like to be credentialed as an OT or as a speech path. So if there are things like that, who would be best to raise that up to?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say absolutely to the director that oversees that particular type of service. So like one example I can think of is that we have done some professional development this year for our school psychologists, our schools. I will say 2 quick things though. We're very open to hearing always about things that are feeling like emerging promising practice. We do have the complete right as a district to select the methodologies and tools that we feel are best. And we respect our providers to make those choices. So we will always decline to hard write a particular therapeutic approach into a child's IEP unless the provider agrees and believes that it is going to be effective for that student in their clinical scope and judgment. And then secondarily, we have to work with evidence-based practices. So while there are many experimental things that are out there in the world right now, until they have an evidence base, we aren't able to bring them into our school-based practice.
Can I
So
jump in real quickly just with a quick soapbox moment to that point?
totally.
Yeah, so I think, I totally understand that. I think it's important to remember that evidence base means just that there's a base of evidence, but not necessarily efficacy. And second, a good portion, I've heard at least a few professionals mention this, at least 1/3 of evidence base is actually real life results, however, in whatever shape that looks like. So I just wanted to name those two things.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, I mean, Anne, as our related services director, and Stacy are absolutely never shut off from the conversation around something that we might be able to bring as professional development to our folks. We also often encourage them if they have an area where they'd like to get additional learning or additional certification to bring that forward. And I see Anna's comment in the chat, and absolutely we are, we particularly when we're looking for our school-based behavior technicians and BCBAs, we are looking for partners that are not going to adopt a rigid clinical approach like an ABA approach. We know that some of those processes and approaches are not neurologically affirming and don't work especially well for some of our youth. And so if we ever did come across a partner that wanted that type of a lockstep, discrete trial type approach, we would decline to work with that type of an agency. Carol?
Thank you. So if you want an evidence-based approach that impacts everybody's learning positively, that's music. And there are, speech therapy, occupational therapy are huge fields. And I think all of us in those fields pursue our annual professional training in areas that will benefit the populations that we tend to work with, whether it's social learning, social pragmatic learning, or early childhood language acquisition, or some of the other specific things. And Prop 28, which I looked at after hearing from Sheila, has some very strong restrictions requiring the district to spend it on the arts. Doesn't dictate which arts, but I will be in touch with Sheila, because I think it's important that our board members understand that the arts are incredibly important to all of our students. And I believe that the access resolution, part of that is making sure that our special education students have full access to all of the arts education, including what is funded by Prop 28.
Thanks, Carol. I think that's awesome that you're going to continue to support advocacy in that way. We know and have seen through our data that there is an access gap. While our students are participating at an expected rate in art, they are not participating at an expected rate in music in our current data available through the secondary grades in our ARIES student information system. And in theory, all students should be getting music education in elementary school. And in practice, we are hearing from our extensive support needs self-contained teachers that often looks like a sheltered class or no class at all. So there's absolutely a place for advocacy there to increase access to music education for our students in particular.
Conversation in the chat about sensory needs and music, or at least between Sayuri and Carol. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I think music is a big one. I know that, and one thing that they've noticed is studied with music is that musicians have thicker corpus callosums. And I know that he would benefit from music therapy as well. So, yeah. So.
I know that Regional center, if it can't be offered through the district and you are a client of the regional center, there's ways now that you, the family, can hire your own therapies for your child. I think it's called Manifest.
Yeah.
So-
It's more a problem of being
Self
able to find a provider, to be quite honest.
self-determination plan.
Self-determination.
Yeah, who can come to the house. It's finding providers that can come to the house.
Finding them, but people should know
Yeah.
that you if the district can't do it, then look for it through your regional center case manager.
Okay. I want to say thank you, Jen, right away. Goodness.
Yeah, that was a lot
Contract
of information.
unpacking.
Thank you.
Contract unpacking. And hopefully this recording should be sent to our decision makers. They have all the information in one place.
Okay, so announcements, appreciations, comments.
Yeah, I was thinking about how much I appreciate you, Jen, as you were giving us all the information. I don't know if you ever left, like how we would replace you, but thank you so much. You're so thorough and we really appreciate it.
I'm going to put here in the notes, don't leave. We can't replace you. To summarize that.
Thanks for
Hey.
all the talking you did, even though you're like still getting over something. I hope you get to like not have to talk for a while.
Appreciations to our fearless chairs who right before this meeting, JD was trying to balance the time. How are we going to do it all? Apologies, Jen and Rain. Like, how will the 15 minutes work for all the questions about IEP completion and enrollment? So we were trying to figure out that timing and it worked out anyway. So thanks for that. JD, thanks for helping with the timing ahead of the meeting. Thanks to two very strong chairs for shaping the meeting. Thanks to Joe and Sheila for collaborating on a musical offering. That was sweet to watch in the deck. And thanks to all the people who are reporting on initiatives. That's work that's kind of on the side, but ongoing. So for providing all of that information, that is CAC members, for your leadership and others too, partners. And yes, all of the work that goes into this, stepping in, sending health to Lena. She always helps so much and she wasn't able to be here today. So thank you, everyone.
Sheila, do you have an announcement, appreciation, or comment?
Yeah, we just got back. Thank you.
Mhm.
I just wanted to just appreciate everyone's support and listening about the music support and still waiting on answers, and wanted to let everyone know that we're going to be doing an online showcase of music and arts. So please feel free to join us. Thank you.
I did that. Let me grab it. Members, almost members, if you want to debrief on our process, building up to this meeting and delivering it, you are welcome. I'm going to put the debrief link in the chat. Thanking Raquel for always doing the things, even though she is at a conference right now and couldn't be here.